Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hey everybody, Q&AK the Lad here, and I have a hardware review for you today, as you can see. And this is quite cool because it's although I've reviewed lots of Spectrums on my channel before, this is probably one of the few that I've never looked at. So it was nice to add to that set. It's also probably the only model I don't own actually, apart from a toast rack. I don't have a 128K toast rack. That's the holy grail, I suppose. But I own all the other models, as you've probably seen from watching my channel, because I've looked at the Plus 2, I've looked at the Plus 3, I've looked at the rubber key, not on its own though. I haven't actually done a video of the rubber key on its own. And I probably should have done that. So yeah, we've looked at most of the we've looked at the rubber key Spectrum in the other videos. So yes, this is a kind of continuation there of looking at another different Spectrum, and it's pretty cool because it's different to all the rest. Because wherever you've got variations of the same model, like all the Amstrad models, the Plus 2, the Plus 2A, the Plus 3, they've all got the same keyboard, same basic design. Obviously the 16K Spectrum, 48K Spectrum, both were the rubber key models. The toast rack, obviously very individual. But we haven't looked at the Spectrum Plus. Obviously, the toast rack is a variation of the Spectrum Plus, so we haven't looked at either of those models. So yeah, it's quite nice to get this one. So this was a marketplace pickup. Jealousy from a lot of people again, I'm sure, because you've obviously heard some of the bargains that I've managed to pick up on my channel before. So this was all fully boxed, as you can see. Spectrum Plus came with the tape recorder, which you've got here, joystick, RAM pack, which we'll look at, all the original packing games. I've put some to either side, plus about 30 odd other games, something like that. So quite a big bundle of stuff, and all of it £50. So I cannot complain at that at all. I thought that was an absolute bargain, because certainly if you looked for that on eBay, you'd be spending at least double that, probably more in fact. So there we go. So yeah, nice box ZX Spectrum Plus. And to get into the history a little bit, so obviously this was the first proper redesign of the Spectrum, because though there were several revisions of the rubber key model, obviously the outside never changed. And one thing that everyone wanted, or a lot of people wanted, when the rubber key was introduced, lots of people bemoaned the lack of a proper keyboard. Although Sinclair were clever in what they did, because they created a budget computer for the masses, at a good price and everything. Once all the competitors started coming on the market, especially the Commodore 64, with its proper keyboard, a lot of people were crying out for a Spectrum with a proper keyboard, and this was what they came up with. So it's not a traditional keyboard, as you'll see, because the keys are different. They're kind of these strange flat keys. In fact, the funny thing was, at the time, this is obviously quite unlike any other computer out there with these flat keys. It was quite unique. The funny thing is, a lot of PC keyboards nowadays feature flat keys, not unlike the ones on the Spectrum Plus. So actually, that's quite funny. I was thinking about that when I was looking at this the other day when I picked it up, because I have one such PC keyboard. I've got those flat keys because I like the flat keys, and yeah, it's not unlike it, apart from the fact that these, I'm trying to show you actually on the camera, they're kind of indented, almost like for your fingers, which is even more unique, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a brilliant keyboard because there's no gaps between the keys. That's the main thing. So it probably wasn't as easy for touch typing, and they're not quite as responsive because you do have to proper push them in. But it was a massive upgrade on this. So there we go. Let's bring out my rubber key again, and this gives you a good idea of the size difference as well. So I've got that flush at that end, so you'll see that the plus is a little bit taller, not much. It's hard to see on the camera, but let's do it like that, and you might be able to see it's probably about 0.5 centimetre, not a great deal in it, taller, and obviously quite a bit wider. So you know, probably a good 10 centimetres there, something like that wider, maybe a bit less, maybe about 8. The keys is obviously the big difference, and not just because of the way they're designed, but there is more of them. So the most notable ones to point out, I think, if we do this, maybe that might work better. First of all, I think the most notable things is you've got a proper space bar instead of this weird little thing here. You've now got cursor keys, which is a big deal. Very, very useful, because trying to use cursor keys on the rubber key was really awkward, because you had to hold down shift and then numbers to so you're basically doing this to scroll through things with cursors, like for example if you're editing in BASIC, and very, very, very awkward indeed. You've also got 2 Capshifts buttons now on each side, like you get with a more modern keyboard, as opposed to the one that was on here. You've also got 2 symbol shift keys, and some separate keys for colon, semicolon, apostrophe, full stop. So we've now got separate keys for those things, which is obviously useful, because on the Spectrum it was the old load, the J, and then the symbol shift PP to get the speech marks, and they're now on their own key. So you can now still have to do that, because it still has the same basic ROM, and then that. So yeah, I mean, as I say, the basic ROM, the operating system is pretty much exactly the same. So you still have the same basic, where instead of typing words in BASIC, so you know, instead of going LOAD for load, for example, you press the corresponding key. So J is load, and then that brings up load. And then obviously to get the ones above, like their val and val with a dollar symbol, val string, that's the dollar symbol string. So there you'd use you got cap shift, you got symbol shift for different things, and extend mode and graph. That's a new key, graph, and so it's edit, that's a new key, delete, new key. So you've got new keys for lots of useful things. True video and inverse video, not massively useful. You only really use them in BASIC, so they were strange choices, I suppose, to put onto their own keys, when it might have been maybe better to have plus and minus keys separate, or perhaps brackets. They would have been more useful keys to have had separately, I think, than true video and inverse video. They could have been left as shortcuts probably. So obviously the only real change in the ROM is mostly the same, but obviously the ROM now recognises the fact that you've got these separate keys. So yes, very, very useful. So let's have a look at the rest of the case, so we can see the differences. Obviously the massive stripe there is now a small stripe, whereas the top of this was metal. Obviously this is now all plastic. That was probably saved a little bit of money there, actually. Right, let's move the 48K out of the way, because I don't want to damage it. So on the back of our Plus, we have the 9-volt power. We have our RF socket. We have mic and ear for connecting up our tape recorder, and we have our expansion bus. So that's basically the same, actually, almost exactly the same, even in the same places, as you can see, as that. So obviously that suggests that there is very, very little change to the motherboard inside, and you would be correct, because this case is somewhat empty inside. It's not a particularly heavy computer at all. On the back, we still have the dreaded internal speaker there. Horrible thing. And we have feet, which is quite cool. There we go. So you can stand it up, and that's like a modern keyboard as well, having the feet so you can angle the computer for typing. On that side, nothing. On this side, woohoo! We now have a reset button, which is a pretty big deal because the original Spectrum didn't have one, which was another one of its biggest faults, because to reset the machine you literally had to pull the power out and put it back in again, which could weaken your power socket on the computer. So it really wasn't an ideal thing to be doing all the time, pulling the power out and pushing it back in. So now we have a proper reset button. Now, to go back to a couple of things, actually, I should have probably already mentioned. I said about the keyboard. I should mention that the keyboard was actually taken from the Sinclair QL, which was obviously Sinclair's ill-fated business computer that they launched to try and compete with the BBC Micro, and it was an absolute disaster. So yeah, it uses basically the same keyboard as that. I'll pop an image actually of the Sinclair QL up in the top right hand corner so you can see what it looked like. You'll see it looks very, very similar. And I mentioned about the obviously when I look at the ports on the back, about it being the same, in this, all the ports being the exact same places as they were on the Spectrum Plus and being the same size and all of that. And another reason for that, with the board being almost the same, was you could actually send off your old rubber key to Sinclair for a price, and they would take the motherboard out and put it in a new case. So you could actually upgrade your old Spectrum into a Spectrum Plus, which was pretty cool. So it saves you having to buy a new Spectrum. I don't think there's many, if any, other kind of computer companies who did something like that over the years, who kind of offered a service like that, which I think was really good. The Spectrum Plus, as I also mentioned, was launched in 1984. Obviously, the original Spectrum was 1982. It came out, I believe, in October 1984, so they got it out just in time for Christmas. But I believe there was supply issues, like there always was with Sinclair, and very few people managed to get them in time for Christmas. They were sold out pretty much everywhere, so that wasn't great. I think again they were built by Timex, I think, up in Dundee. So that's the computer itself. We've had a look at that. So now I actually want to mention some of the accessories that I've got with it. So all the bits that went with it. There's the old Sinclair power supply, so the original one, same as the is the same one as the original model. I have here the user guide. So this is actually really cool because it's in full colour. So how to load a program, got all this stuff, and then there's basic tutorials, obviously there, designing patterns and pictures. So with breakdowns of the code and stuff and what everything means, and then we've obviously got a glossary of what all the basic commands mean. So we've got that there as well. Handy reference guide there for you with your new machine. So there we go. I mentioned before that I got a RAM pack. So there it is. It is not RAM pack, joystick interface, but it's made by RAM. That's why I said RAM pack. So obviously, just to show you, this plugs into the expansion port on the back. Like that. So I've got it on. And then obviously you plug your Spectrum into there. And it's what they call Kempston compatible on the Spectrum. So obviously that plugs in there, which is a bit strange really, to have I think, personally, to have your joystick hanging over the keyboard. If you want to use the keyboard as well, you're going to end up keep knocking that. So it'd make more sense for me to have it on the back or to have it on the top or the side or something. But there we go. There was different ones available. There were a lot of them that laid flat at the back, so obviously you plug the joystick in on the top. Lots of different ones available, but that's the joystick interface that I've got. And I've got this lovely QuickShot 2 Plus joystick. So the QuickShot joysticks were classics. Lots of people had them for various systems, and the Plus is the same as the normal QuickShot 2, apart from, yeah, it's micro switched and it has an auto fire. So yeah, so minor enhancements. And yet the Kempston standard, sorry, I should have said, which just uses what they called the Kempston joystick, was basically just Atari. So any Atari compatible joystick was Kempston, basically. Why they had to come up with a new name, I think it was because the first company that introduced those ports was Kempston. I do believe Kempston went on to develop the Competition Pro joysticks as well, that everyone seemed to love, but I always hated. That was Kempston as well, I believe. And we have here a mic leads somewhere. So obviously these are what you used to connect it up to the tape recorder. They plug into the ear and mic sockets on the back of the computer. One's for loading, one's for saving, and I've got a nice old school Cloud 7 mono tape deck here. So yeah, to load your games with. I've not tried it actually. I should try it and see if it works. It's even got the good old handy tape counter, which doesn't seem to actually work, doesn't seem to reset. But the significance of that was mainly for pirates, because what people who like to copy games, as actually pretty much everyone did, to be honest with you, pirates, what they would do is get like a C90 tape, like a good one, like TDK was always popular. Good old TDK T90, and fill it up with as many games as possible that you could get on it, which would be actually a lot, because in general games, even the longest games probably at this time would have fitted on a 15-minute tape, and used to get those Boots C15 tapes, if you remember those. You could just literally put a game on each side. They were very popular. But yeah, if you got a 90, you could obviously get like 50 games or something on it. And what you'd do is on the inlay, you'd write the game, and then you'd write the position of the tape counter. So therefore, if you wanted to get to a game that was further into the tape, you could fast forward on the tape counter to the right place to play it. Very useful indeed. And actually, when they introduced the Spectrum Plus 2, that was one of the things that really annoyed people about the Spectrum Plus 2, because that had the built-in tape deck, which was really good. It didn't have a tape counter, so all the people who had those pirate tapes with the things on were stuffed, because they didn't know where to find it on the tape, unless they actually used another tape recorder to get it in a position and then swapped it into their Spectrum. But obviously that was a lot of faff, so a lot of people were annoyed by the lack of a tape counter. So what else we got here? We've got some of the bundled software. So I'll show you. Good old Maker chip, much maligned, where you can make yourself a computer chip on your computer. There's about 1 billion copies of this in circulation, I believe. Probably the most common piece of software to pick up with the Spectrum TazWord 2 word processor, which for the time is very, very, very good indeed. Very impressive piece of software that. We've got Scrabble. And Survival, another one that you see like everywhere, which is meant to teach you science, as you can see. It was Sinclair and Macmillan. There was lots of Sinclair and Macmillan stuff, and they did all the educational software was Macmillan, and a couple more that came with it. Proper games. We have the amazing Jetpack by Ultimate Play the Game, aka Rare, and Cookie, also by Ultimate Play the Game, aka Rare. And there's a lot of this Sinclair rebadged loads of other people's games, like stuff by Ultimate and stuff by Melbourne House in particular, with Sinclair branding, like that. I've got a couple more here actually. So there we go. I've got Backgammon, Opus Cyan as well. Their stuff. They did a lot of the software for the Spectrum Cyan. It was, I think they're still going. We were until quite recently anyway. And there we go. The user guide companion cassette as well, which you could play, and it taught you how to use your computer. So yeah, very nice little bundle. Get with your computer that covered pretty much every facet of the machine, really. Using it as a games machine, using it for educational, and even using it for business. Although not many people did. The Spectrum was, as everyone knows, mainly used for gaming, and became the dominant gaming format in the UK, where Sinclair sold over 5 million computers. Very impressive indeed. Actually, before I get on to my end part, I did mean to do this before when I showed you the Plus next to the rubber key, but it might also be interesting to show you the Spectrum Plus next to an Amstrad model. So there is my lovely Plus 3, which I love my Plus 3. So there we go. The Plus 3 is bloody massive compared to the Plus. So then if we put this in the picture as well, you can see how much bigger the Spectrum got over time, because the Plus 3 is the biggest model of the Spectrum. So the difference between the rubber key and the Spectrum Plus is about the same again, onto the Plus 3, onto the end there. Obviously the Plus 3 has the built-in disk drive there, but you will notice as well actually that the keyboard layout from the Plus was kept exactly the same for the Amstrad models. So you notice all the keys, although this is a proper keyboard, so to speak, all the keys are exactly the same places. You've still got true video, inverse video. The only difference was that they took off the keyboard shortcuts off the keys, apart from a few, because the 1 to 8K had proper basic, where you could just type in all the commands. So to give my usual end summary that I like to do, usually I say something like, is this machine worth getting, blah blah blah. If you've watched my previous Spectrum videos, you know that I will always advocate getting a 1 to 8K machine. The Plus 2 is probably the best model of them to pick up, as I said in my review of the Plus 2, which if you haven't seen, actually I'll link just in the top corner now my review of the Plus 2, because that is probably the best overall model to get in terms of compatibility, price, everything really together. The Spectrum Plus is probably actually the cheapest and one of the easiest models to pick up. They seem less sought after. A lot of people like the original rubber key because it's so iconic, obviously how it looks, with it being the first one. The Spectrum Plus is probably the least sought after model, for many reasons, but it's still pretty cool. I mean, I don't think you'd want it as your main Spectrum, because you still got to put up with RF, you still got to put up with internal speaker, you still only got 48K of memory, so you are always going to be better for the 1 to 8K machine. And obviously if you want the best model full stop, really you want the 1 to 8K plus toast rack with a big heatsink on the side, but they're out of reach of most people because they go for stupid money. That's it really. It's a nice one to add to the collection, because I think it's a really good looking computer. I do have to say. Really nice. It's another nice addition to my Spectrum collection. As I said before, the Spectrum was my first computer. It was my first introduction to computing, my first games machine, etc. So I have a lot of love and nostalgia for the Spectrum, and always will. But yeah, I mean, if you have a retro gaming collection, you should probably have a Spectrum in it. If you don't, then there's probably something wrong with you. Although, caveat there, you might be American, because obviously the Spectrum wasn't a big thing outside of Europe, even more so the UK, because obviously that's where it's most popular. But to a lot of Americans, the Spectrum is very much a weird and wonderful thing. But I hope you enjoyed my look at the Spectrum Plus. I've been the Laird, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.